Hi guys, and welcome to the channel. So we recently had that live Zoom Q&A with David Brooks, and it was great to actually get David into a situation where he could answer questions from fellow fans. So if you were on that, thank you very much for joining, and if you weren't, this is your chance to catch up with that live Q&A with David Brooks. Rob, we're recording, yeah?
Yeah, we're on.
Okay. Okay, how many people we got in here now?
30.
30, wow, okay. Okay. I just want to say good evening to everyone and thank you very much for joining this unique and exciting event. What we're going to do is I'm going to start off making a presentation and just, this is very free flowing. I just want to talk to David. I want to play you his debut single from his up and coming album. His debut single, Beautiful Day, fantastic track, heard it for the first time yesterday. And then what we'll do is I will then open the floor up to you guys to ask questions. So the way we're going to do that is, because there's a lot of people on here, if you would like to ask a question, if you see on the bottom right-hand side of your screen there, there's a little icon that says reactions. If you click that, if you guys, and forgive me if I'm being condescending, I just don't know how many of you are familiar with Zoom, but if you look at the bottom, you've got a reactions thing. And if you click that, you'll see there's a thumbs up and there's a little applaud clapping. If you want to ask a question, click on the little applaud thing. And that way, Rob and I will know that you want to ask a question. We will do our best to make sure that you do get to ask your question. But bear with us, you know, mistakes can be made. Right, so my monologue is out the way. I hope you're all having a good night. I was just saying to David just before we came onto the call that this time 2 years ago was the gig in the Royal Albert Hall. And I don't know how many of you were actually there. I mean, raise your hand if you were there at the Royal Albert Hall. Yeah. Yeah, David, you were obviously there. I was just saying to David that the world is such a different place now. It's just surreal to see the video footage of us all standing in that hall and screaming and shouting and going, Numan! And now we're having to socially distance. Rob, how many people we got on now?
31. And if I could just mention real quick, if you're not speaking, if you can mute yourselves, and then when you do speak, you'll have to unmute yourself. We can ask you to unmute, but we cannot actually unmute you. So you will need to unmute yourself.
Right. Okay, so I think, what is it now? It's nearly 10 past. Okay, so David, I'm just going to start asking you a few questions, and then this will give some people a chance to get on. And then, as I say, we're going to play your track, Beautiful Day.
Okay.
Right, so first of all, Rob, how are you feeling having not gigged for, is this the longest you've not been gigging?
Yeah, I guess it is. Yeah, it will be since I was a teen, probably 9 months. So the last gig was the end of February.
Right.
Yeah, haven't had the gear out since then. So yeah, it's definitely the longest. And
you're obviously in touch with the other band members. You guys are like family, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah, I speak to them all separately. I got a few Zooms with Gary and Gemma recently, which is always surreal because they're sitting outside in the sunshine under palm trees.
Yeah.
And I'm not. But yeah, we all speak, yeah.
Yeah. And so you've been using a lot of this time to work on your album?
Yeah. And I thought that it would mean that I'd get it done really quickly and that it'd be long finished by now. But trying to focus and apply yourself to something when things are not good, you know, it's quite bad. That I haven't worked since February. I haven't earned a penny, not a penny since February, I don't think. Well, I've just started earning now, but you know, it's grim. So it's quite hard to focus, and the kids are often off. I've got kids, they're off school, and so it's been quite hard to work on the album. And I've been working on this Visage project with Chris Payne and Rusty Egan and Zane. So that's kept me quite busy as well.
That's interesting. What exactly is it, or you're not at liberty to say at this moment?
Well, so Rusty Egan, who is the surviving member of Visage, wanted to do some gigs and basically put our band together. Obviously, not the band back together, because the lead singer sadly passed away. But Chris Payne, who was Gary's original keyboard player, was also a sort of founding member, I guess, of Visage, and was a co-writer of Fade to Grey. Him and Billy Currie.
Yeah.
What I've been told is him and Billy Currie knocked something together in a Numan sound check, and then it ended up under Midgeur's nose through Billy Currie, and Fade to Grey, which was their biggest hit, came about. So Chris was very much involved from the very beginning. He rang me up and said, "Would you like to do this?" This is last year, and there were loads of festivals. There was a whole diary of stuff that sat just nicely up until Gary was going to start work again. I rang Gary and said, "Are you all right about this? Is this okay if I do this?" He said, "Yeah, totally fine. It'll be great." And they've got this fantastic guy called Zane Griff, who Google him. He's really interesting, and he's a lovely person. And he was involved with Bowie. He's been involved in loads of stuff. He lives in New Zealand, so he's in New Zealand. Chris Payne's in France. I'm in Sussex, and Rusty Egan's in.
He's in Chelsea in London.
Right, yeah. So yeah, it's been, and so we put the whole set together, and we're working on some new versions of all the old stuff and a new album of original material. So, and that's all been done. Well, actually, Rusty came down here for a few days, and we did some work here. But all the writing of the new material has just been done on email, you know, zooming it about.
Okay, well, that's it's good to see you keeping yourself busy. Now, if we come onto your album that we spoke about when I interviewed you last time, it's under your name, which is Littlefinger.
Yes.
How long have you had the Littlefinger project for?
Well, I was always in bands, and they always had names, different daft names, and that name came about, but there was no band, there was no project. That's so I thought that'd be a great name for a band. Nothing to do with Game of Thrones. I've never seen an episode of Game of Thrones in my life, so I was blissfully unaware that the name had already been taken. But towards the end of the touring with Gary, probably 2 years ago, when Albert Hall time, Tim had said to me, Tim, bass player in Gary's band, so many times, "You should do this. You should do an album. The time is right." He'd done a couple. So he was really coaching me on it and pushing. So I guess it all grew out at the end of the Numan tour, and I think I started it in the May or thereabouts. So that's 18 months ago.
Okay, so you've been keeping busy. Now, you've got some. This album of yours. So it's Littlefinger. What is the album called?
Big Finish.
Big Finish. Okay. So Big Finish, the album by David Brooks. It's very much a solo project, but you've actually got lots of session music, or you've collaborated with a lot of interesting people. Some being TJ Davis, who used to be a backing singer on Gary Numan's tour, but she's an artist in her own right. And also Steve Harris. Tell us how many, who exactly has contributed to this album?
So I always intended to use lots of people to do it. So it would be songs that I've written and I guess me producing it, but I wanted to use just as many people, basically because I feel as if I know some really talented people, and the more talented people you can get involved, hopefully the better it'll be. So Richie, Gary's drummer, has drummed on a couple of tunes. in a strange way, we actually did some demos and jamming a little while ago, and then I've used those tracks. So he didn't do them to be on the album, but they've ended up being on the album. Steve Harris has done quite a lot of guitars. I just send him the demos and he just sends me loads and loads of stuff back. As you say, TJ, who I've always known since before she did Gary. We used to live in Yorkshire and we moved to London together, and she got the Gary gig, and so we've always been mates. My wife, who's a singer, has sung a couple of tunes on there, and lots of guitarists and bass players, percussionist. I even was Tim Dorney, who's the keyboard player in Republica. I was speaking to him through a mutual friend recently. I was trying to get this effect, and he's a bit of a whiz in the studio, so he was doing something, trying to get something to it. It didn't work in the end, so but it was really interesting to meet him and work with him, so that was nice. And then the other one was what I told you when I spoke to you last, was that a band that I was really into in the 90s called Freak Power, who are an English band. It was Fatboy Slim and an American singer called Ashley Slater, and they were doing a sort of Sly and the Family Stone, Fatboy Slim sort of thing, and I absolutely loved it. It's not very Numan-y at all, I'm afraid, but I loved it, and his voice was amazing. And to cut an extremely long story short, he turned up on my doorstep. Weirdly, it was a Facebook weird thing, and in the space of that conversation, I managed to sort of hoodwink him into singing a track. So a song that would never have got onto this album because it's quite electronic-y. And the song that I got him to sing on is really kind of retro funk. It would never have gone on the album, but him doing the vocal, I couldn't not, you know.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of everybody on there.
Well, it's great. It sounds really, really interesting. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to get Rob to play your track, guys, exclusively here. I'm pleased to bring you Beautiful Day by David Brooks, Littlefinger. And before we play it, David, can you just tell us, this is you singing on this track?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I sung a couple of songs on the album. I didn't mean to, because I always intended to get lots of people to do it, but I did it. It sounded all right, and you sort of live with something for quite a while. Yeah. And I just kept it. So yeah, that's
as I say, I really like it. It's really and it's not me telling you what to do, but I mean, if this is your idea of a single to promote the album, I really think it's a good choice. I mean, I haven't heard the other songs, but I just think it's got a really nice kind of familiar sound to it. It's very melodic. So you're doing the vocals, and you're doing like the final mix and the production on this. Is that right?
Yeah, I produced it all. Steve Harris is on guitar, but it's really subtle. He with Gary, he often plays this thing called an e-bow, which is it's a little thing you hold in your hand. It's an electrical thing that generates a signal, and it agitates the string. So it's like bowing a violin.
Okay.
You get this continue. Oh, there it is. Rob's holding one. That's exactly it.
Well done, Rob.
And it gives you a continuous note. And so Steve recorded 4 tracks, like a string quartet, like a distorted string quartet. You might not even hear it, but so he's not like widdly riffage. He's just doing this nice subtle bed of like a string quartet.
Yeah, as I say, I've listened to this track a few times and I've really enjoyed it. So right, Rob, let's roll that track. It's about 4 minutes long, so let's all just listen to this track exclusively for the first time. It's David Brooks with Beautiful Day.
Sweet. I got your note today, and you're right. It's all a waste of time, and I'm tired now. I've forgotten all my lines, but they would have made us cry. It's a beautiful day, but it feels like it's raining, and it's cold, it's dark, but I'm told it's a beautiful day. We're lost in a storm. I feel like I'm drowning. Can't get home, so alone, but I'm told it's a beautiful day. It's still an open wound. It's not healing. Trying much too soon. But you do. It's a very lonely place. When you look out, there's not a friendly face. When you walk outside our door, it's a beautiful day, but I feel like it's raining, and it's cold, it's dark, but I'm told it's a beautiful day. We're lost in a storm. I feel like I'm drowning. Can't get home, so alone, but I'm told it's a beautiful day.
Right.
Mm.
Beautiful. Yeah, the abrupt ending, that was
Sorry about
we're having
that.
a technical. So I think that was Keen that made its way in there. So yeah, that was the Beautiful Day by David Brooks. Guys,
That was good.
what do you? Okay. Yeah, I think we
already had feedback there, so
give you a round of applause, David. That was really, really good. Really, really, really like that. It's one of those songs. It's not a grower. It's like instantly likable, just instantly likable. Really, really like it. And
Thank you.
you have my complete support with my channel and my group. As I say to you all watching here, we're going to be following David, and we'll be having regular updates in kind of vlog style. And you guys will be the first to know as it breaks. So, and also looking forward to doing some more interviews when the album drops. And just a few more things I want to say, David, about the Littlefinger before I open the floor up to the questions. Now, you will see recently, obviously, here is, I don't think there's anyone on here that is not a Gary Numan fan. But I think what I'm always trying to point out is that although David has been playing keyboards for Gary since 1996, he is in fact a very, very competent and established artist in his own right. He's also started doing production. Well, it's not started, he always has, But as you guys, if you guys follow Gary Numan, you will notice that recently Gary Numan made a posting just to sort of mention make it clear that David does do production, he does mentoring, he does coaching. And if you're looking to get into music production or, you know, in any way to improve what you're doing, get in touch with David. Now, this broadcast is being recorded. It's going to go and it'll be released on my Facebook group, or my YouTube channel next week. And all the links to all this will be coming up. But I just want to give you a few of those links now. You can, David's website is www.littlefinger.club. It's a really good website. You can check out his music, but there's also some demos and work in progress there. And I think there's a video of you somewhere, David, stripping off and running naked down a promenade.
Yeah.
Something for the ladies, but we'll leave that later. And then, of course, you've got your Facebook group, which is facebook.com/littlefingermusic. And of course, if you're interested in any coaching by David Brooks or any music production services, that is facebook.com/Numan Keys. But all this information will be coming up on the screen when this video is released next week on the Vaughn George YouTube channel. So, David, I wish you all the best with it. Now there's a bit of pressure because I think the last time we spoke, you were being a typical artist, as we are, where we procrastinate, we never get stuff done. You are now, you've got now people expecting you to finish that album, and you've really raised the expectation with a great, a single that we're all looking forward to. So all the best with that, mate.
Thank you very much.
I'm really pumped, and I'm really happy to have you on. Right, guys, now it's your opportunity. We're going to open the floor up to you now for questions. Anything you want to ask David. And as I said, if you've just joined the call, on the bottom right-hand screen, you will see there's a little reaction icon there. If you click on that, if you want to ask David a question, just click the little applause sign, and then Rob and I will call your name and get you to ask a question. I see Nigel was the first one up there. Nigel Drum. Nigel, your question to David, sir.
Try to on. Well, oh, there we go. Right. Hello, Dave.
Hi, Nigel. How's the keyboard?
I'm about to say it's doing very well. Just obviously with Dave doing his album, just let everybody know he's got like a making music thing where you can pre-order the album, and participated on that. And I had the chance to actually buy one of David's keyboards that he used on a Gary Numan tour, which is sitting quite nicely in the corner here. Are you selling anything else then, Dave?
I should sell everything, really. I keep thinking about selling the clothes, the Savage outfit that we wore for the thing. But on the website where that keyboard was, I don't think there is anything else. Is the t-shirts, the Littlefinger t-shirts, and the listening party, if we're ever allowed to do gigs again, there's going to be like gigs, one in the UK, one in the north and one in the south. But in terms of gear, no, Nigel, the short answer is no. I'm got anything planned to sell.
No, that's fine. That'll do me. Thank you very much.
Nice to see you, mate.
And
Nigel, it wasn't a quadrasynth, was it?
No, this was it's just I wish. Oh, his access. I got 8 Fenton's access virus here as well.
Oh.
So I'm slowly building up bits of Gary Numan's band that's been cast off.
Right, who's next for a question? Larry?
Yeah, so I want to say I like the song "Beautiful Day." It reminds me of a Radiohead song, and my question is, so are MIDI synthesizer controllers more advanced than regular keyboards?
MIDI, what you mean? They're like the controller keyboards?
Yeah, those.
Well, I wouldn't say they were more advanced because there's the keyboard, the infinite amount of fantastic synthesizer keyboards that are out there. There's some incredible technology going on. A controller generally are pretty cheap and fairly basic. It's just a trigger, like a Xbox controller. You know, it's very simple. I use them with Gary and other such things because everything, all the sounds and everything that we do is in the laptop, or a little bit of outboard gear, and then we just, if we're flying around, we'll hire a controller keyboard, and they're very simple. And you know, there's the one that Nigel got, which is absolutely industry standard. You can get that anywhere in the world, wherever we go. So it'll be there, and you just plug in the laptop and you're off. So I wouldn't say they were advanced.
Yeah, and another thing, I know that you mentioned Fatboy Slim. I actually do know the song Rockefeller, right about now.
Yeah.
The Funk Soul Brother, check it out now. The Funk Soul Brother. And I have listened to like a lot of bands that like have like those sort of DJs to them. Like when I was little, I used to listen to Daft Punk. Have you ever heard of Daft Punk?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I used to listen to them a lot. They were like pretty cool.
Oh yeah, I love Daft Punk. Amazing, fantastic. Yeah, absolutely.
Also, here's a fact that you didn't know. The EBO was actually once used by David Bowie's guitarist in 1997 for the song I'm Afraid of Americans,
Oh, really?
which he collaborated with Trent Reznor.
All right. Yeah, small world.
Right, who's the next question?
Shads.
Go for it.
Hi, Shads.
Shads, you have your hand up. Do you have a question? If not, let's move on to Mark McKellar.
Oh.
You'll have to unmute yourself, Mark.
I've done it now, yeah.
Hi, Mark.
Nice to meet you again and speak to you on this COVID Saturday evening.
Nice background.
Just want to know, what's your favourite Gary Numan song you like doing live? Do you get the most out of playing?
Well, it's probably, I mean, I was saying to Vaughn before, when you play the big hit with an artist, there's a certain thing that happens. Like when you, so Cars, when you play Cars, the electricity in the room, whether it be Gary's gig or some festival of non-Numan fans, or we've done a few sort of TV shows. We're at Maida Vale, which is the British BBC theatre, you know, and you get the same reaction. So it's not necessarily that the song itself is great to play, but the feeling you get when the electricity in the room. And I remember seeing people at that Maida Vale thing. There were all sorts of TV shows going on. All these people were flooding into the room to see. They could hear it, and it's such a you know, little piece of history. So probably something like that. Down in the Park is always good because it's such a handful. It's, you know, I like pulling it off if I do.
Right. And have you read Gary's book yet?
No, I have not. Am I in it?
It's funny.
Is it?
No, yeah, it's really good, really in depth. Yeah. Really in depth.
I'll have to get a copy. I have mentioned it, but it hasn't arrived yet.
Yeah, great. Anyway, I love your new sound and new song, and hopefully when this all COVID is over, we'll get to see you and Gary next year sometime.
For sure.
We'll do the tour in the making next year. Let's hope it all goes together and we see everyone back touring next year. Yeah,
I hope so too. Look
anyway, good luck. Yeah.
Nice one, Mark.
Thank you. Bye.
Right, next question for David.
Matt, you have a question?
Hi, yeah. Hi, Dave.
Hello.
Pleasure to meet you anyway.
And you, yeah.
Yeah, couple of questions. One is, obviously you played bass and guitar.
Yeah.
Which came first to you?
Well, I learned to play guitar before I learned to play anything. My mum was a music teacher, so there were always instruments in the house. There was a piano and guitars. So I learned to play the guitar, played in a few bands, and then I was in a band and there was another. We were just a load of mates, and there was another guitarist who was amazing, and I was nothing like. But I had a keyboard, and we didn't have a keyboard player, so I ended up playing keyboards absolutely by accident. With Gary, I can't remember because when I joined Gary's band, he didn't have a bass player and hadn't had a bass player for quite a long time. It was, you know, 2 keyboards.
Der er lige sådan et online
drums
event, jeg lige går ind og følger inden i musikrummet.
Oh, that's loud. And then he wanted to do a couple of songs that, you know, the old songs that I'd had bass, so I ended up playing a bit of bass. I think I did that for Gary before I played any guitar. So yeah, that's how that came about.
That's amazing. And also quickly, obviously Gary's quite heavily into flying. Has he taken you up before? And
yeah. In the early days, he had the Harvard, which was the wartime plane, right. And it was parked, whatever you do with a plane, parked up near his house. So I went up there, and he took me up and did the whole thing, you know, the loop and all the tricks and all that sort of stuff. And I remember, because Aid Orange was in the band at the time, the other keyboard player, and he'd gone the week before or the month before or whatever, and he'd been really ill, like travel sick. He'd been really ill. So there was this sort of thing of honor that I had to hold it together. And I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified. And it was a terrifying experience, but I didn't throw up. So
that's good.
Yeah. It was good though.
That's a good way to tell. Is that like the selection keyboard selection process for a Gary Numan keyboard player? You need to get on the plane, and if you don't throw up, you're on. You're in. You
can stay. Yeah, I think it had a little bit of that. Yeah, it was amazing.
Right. Thanks for the good question there, Matt. Right. Who's the next question?
Henry has a question.
Henry, go for it.
What's it like working with Gary Numan?
It's good. It is good. There's not really any bad to tell you. It's good. He's great. He knows what he wants. You know, I've been in it a long time. When I first started, I literally turned up. It was all his gear. I didn't bring any equipment at all. And he said, play this. So every single song, he'd just say, this is what you're to play. This is the sound. This is the part. Just play that. You know, in every other band you're in, none of those things are the same. You bring your own gear. You're employed to do what you can do, bring what you can bring to the party. It has changed a bit over the years. I now use a lot of my own stuff, and I get to have input. But he certainly knows what he wants. And off stage, it's different as well from any other tour and gig that I've done, in that it's very much a family. Days off, we go and do something together. You know, after shows, we go and do something together. We turn up at the hotel, everybody goes and have dinner together. In all the other bands I do, that's not the case. You know, everybody clears off to the room. You don't see each other. So it is different to other gigs. But I got no complaints.
Thanks for thank you for the question, Henry. And can I just ask, because I'm always intrigued by, and Gary was always saying, you know, he's been doing it for many years, and he gets, you know, younger fans on board. Henry, you must probably be one of the youngest Numanoids I've ever seen. How old are you?
10.
10. And tell me, how are you a fan? Do your parents listen to it, or how did you get into Gary Numan's music?
I don't really know. Just
Really?
Spotify.
Okay, so no one introduced you to it, like a parent or an
No.
elder? You just actually
really.
found it and you liked it?
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. David, are you? I'm familiar with younger fans, but not this young. Really, this is amazing.
Yeah. It's really good. It's really good to see. You know, we have different generations of people who come with their kids. Yeah. And occasionally you'll see kids bringing parents who aren't fans. You know.
Yeah.
So it's lovely to see.
Well, it's just because I remember when 2004 in the Fragment tour, I took my dad to see it, and he really enjoyed it. So that's an example of, children taking their parents, so to speak. Not that I was a child, but usually in the case of Henry, it's you usually see someone that young getting into a band because of their parents, and this to me is an intriguing story. How Henry got into this band without being introduced to it by the parents. So that's very, very fascinating. Henry, you've got great taste in music. I just want to tell you, really do.
And in wall paint as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, yeah. Very, very. Thank you.
And I really like this single as well.
Oh, bless you! Thank you very much.
Yeah, you must tell all your friends about David Brooks and Littlefinger.
I will.
Before you, Henry, what's your favorite Gary Numan song?
Oh, I think The End of Things.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
You have got you've got really good taste in music. Very impressed. Right. Who's the next question?
Lloyd.
Is that my wingman, Lloyd?
Hi,
Lloyd.
Hey. Hi, David. Yeah, so it's just like a really geeky question, but so I think it was 11 years ago, Chris Payne joined you on the Pleasure Principle tour. I think for a few songs on stage.
Right. Yeah.
Was there ever talks with you and Gary about maybe bringing back Billy Currie, or like for a reunion, just play a few songs on tour with him?
No.
As he was.
No. I mean, I mean, I've heard conversations of it. I don't know. I've seen him on Facebook, Billy Currie. I've never met him. But obviously with the Visage thing that I'm doing now, his name's come up a few times. They all know him. But I don't know whether he, keeps himself to himself or what the reason is, but he doesn't seem to be around or in contact with people. So it's not been a thing. And Russell Bell as well has come back. But yeah, I don't know why Billy Currie isn't mentioned. I know he was doing his own thing. Maybe he chooses to not.
Oh, okay. My second question is, how did the Chris Payne reunion come about? Was it, I think, nearly 11 years ago? How did that come about? Did Gary just speak to him one day and he decided, I'll just come for a few songs?
I don't know, to be honest. They're still in contact, they're mates. I can imagine when Gary first was successful at the age of 19 or whatever he was, it must have been such an incredible experience for them with Russell. And they've always stayed in touch. So often at gigs, Chris is about, and Russell. More recently, Russell, he's around. So it was quite a nice, and a fairly sort of obvious thing to get him up. And then again, recently, with the Savage thing when he was doing the support. So they've always been in touch, and it'll probably happen again at some point, I would imagine.
Oh, okay. Thank you for answering my question. Thank you.
No problem.
Right.
You're welcome.
Right. Who's the next question for David Brooks?
So, Nigel, you still have your hand up. Did you have another question, or did you need? Okay. It looks like John has a question.
John, go for it.
Good evening.
Hi, John.
Hi, David. Thanks for great to speak to you. I was lucky enough to meet Chris Payne a few years ago at some seminar in Birmingham, a keyboard thing, and I asked him a question, and I'd like to ask you the same question about when Gary comes into the rehearsal room or recording studio, whatever you are, with a Master, say, for Splinter or Savage or whatever it might be, and you hear it for the first time, what do you think? What's the thought of this? You think, wow, this is awesome. Talk me through your emotions when you first hear these awesome pieces of music.
I think with Savage, and I was talking to Rich Beasley, the drummer, Gary's drummer,
right,
of the last 30 years or whatever it is, the other day, and we were saying the same thing because obviously quite a lot of the next album is finished, but we want to hear it.
Yeah, true that.
Yeah, because what we now know is that we're going to be obviously playing it for years, hopefully.
Live, yeah.
And when as the keyboard player, when you hear it, you're automatically thinking, I suppose you're thinking, what's in it for me? What's in it for me? You know, to play.
How involved am I, sort of thing? Yeah.
And is this because it's that thing like when somebody has a hit and and they've got to sing that hit for 30 years. Is it going to drive them mad? It's a little bit of that syndrome, because you listen to it and you think, well, I'm going to play this 1,000 times, literally 1,000 times. I don't know how many times I've played Cars or whatever. So you do listen to it from that point of view. I do remember way back being at Gary's when he lived near Stansted. We used to go up there sort of socially, and he'd take you in the studio and play something. I remember hearing a few things for the first time and being blown away. You know, they blow you away. They're amazing. They're big. When you're not really thinking as the keyboard player, you're just listening to it as a listener.
Yeah.
So there's two angles of, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Great. My second question, if I can ask.
Please go ahead, John. Go ahead.
Thank you. I don't know how much influence you have over Gary when you're trying to decide a set list for whether it be a tour to promote an album or like a retro show. But I'm an old school Numan fan from 80, and I've got different favourites. I know Gary had a time in his career when he was doing quite a few B-sides like Noise and things like that. Actually, I'm playing Assassin now. Is there any chance in doing the Images B-side of I think it's White Boys and Heroes live, because it's just my favourite track, would you believe it, from that early era. I mean, would you be able? Does he listen to ideas? Input? As you say, I know he knows what he wants. He's very direct and determined. But does he listen to ideas and?
He does.
Yeah.
He does. I accidentally made a very bold statement to Vaughn last time we spoke. That was I reckon I might have played everything that he's ever written, and I immediately regretted saying it, because that whole 80s, Mick Karn, Pino Palladino, era, we barely touched. In my time, and you're right. Yeah, he hasn't revisited that. Answering your first question, often, in rehearsals, lunch or whatever, we'll be sitting around and he'll be considering set lists, and his criteria is so involved and different to ours, to mine, yours. He's got this sort of encyclopedic knowledge of what he's done, what he hasn't done, when he did it, how it went down. And so you'll say, oh, can we do Dark or whatever? And he'll say, well, we did that, 2 tours back or whatever. And he's got that going on. Then obviously there's the new album that we want to do that. There's all sorts of things. You can make suggestions, and we often do, but you certainly can't. Once you said no, it's no. I can imagine. I can imagine. Yeah. But that it would be really interesting to try some of that period that you just talked about.
Yeah. I mean, when he played Assassin on the Revolution tour, I thought, wow, perhaps there might be. Because I went to a few shows on that tour. Of course, you played a lot of different stuff, and I thought, wow, there might be a chance. But of course, it was all like major tracks all the fans knew. But yeah, I'm just thinking maybe. But then again, you see, we've got years ahead of seeing Numan live. So who knows in the future what could happen? So I'm optimistic about what he might play on the next tour. So I'm looking forward to it.
It's a really good point, and I will bear that in mind. I'm not saying I've got any influence. But maybe if I whisper it to Gemma, and Gemma as a word, we might be able to. I don't know.
Because I know that Gemma had a big influence on during the Gene Corrosion tour when he brought in things like Joe the Waiter and I Don't Believe, that sort of thing. When he fleshed out his shows, you can tell Gemma's influence. Then I'll think I'm just I guess as a fan, but yeah, maybe I was with Gemma first. Then
I'll do my best.
I've got no right to say this, but I really think I get the feeling that if you want Gary to do something, tell Gemma to tell Gary to do it, and he'll bloody will do it.
Go to the boss. Go to the boss first. Yeah.
She only got more influence than me. Put it that way.
Yeah,
John, bro. That looks like me Uncle Timmy.
Yeah, John. If I can just sort of elaborate on that. It's very true, and I spoke to David about this last time. I think it's very difficult for Gary and David and the whole band when they're touring to. It's very difficult when because Gary Numan has always been very vocal of the fact that he is a current artist.
Yeah, it doesn't like looking backwards. Yeah,
a lot of the people that started when he did are just sort of riding the nostalgia wave, and there's nothing wrong with that. But Gary does see himself, and he's very adamant about the fact that he is a credible artist. Therefore, he wants to push his new material. And with that comes the challenge of pushing the new material, and then also keeping the fans interested with the older stuff. And as your catalog gets bigger, that's harder to do. But if I can just say, I think Gary Numan is one of the few artists where his new material is just great. It just seems, he doesn't, a lot of new artists, and I'm not going to mention names, artists that have been going for 40 years, they go, here's our new song, and you're just thinking, can't we hear some of your hits from the 80s?
Yeah, play the hits,
yeah. It's not the case, so definitely.
Yeah.
How are we on the questions there? Who was it next, Rob? Was it Sue?
Lane is up next.
Oh,
hi.
Hi, Lane.
Hi, very nice song, very nice work.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very
I've
much.
got a set list here from a few years ago, and I don't know if you might have been there. I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact year. I think it's 2014.
Oh, yeah.
Paradise Rock Club in Boston.
No.
Well, I've played there a few times. I may not have been there then, because I think I took a couple of years off around then. So I may not have been, but I have played there a few times.
I also saw him on the Jagged tour, followed him from Boston to the Irving Plaza.
Oh, right, yeah.
And in between then there was this one tour where he was doing much heavier versions of older stuff, and he had a cold and couldn't sing, and the whole audience sang for him basically, and that was fantastic. My main question is I saw Gary Numan's post said that you were for hire for collaborations. If you're not full up yet, what's the easiest way to drop you a line or send you my stuff to see if you dig it and if I can afford you?
Yeah, just go to Numan Keys, all one word, numankeys@gmail.com.
Okay.
And drop me a line and we'll talk.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Good work.
Oh, thank you. Nice to meet you.
Lane, absolutely. As I say, the details will come up at the end of this on my channel next week. But if for some reason you can't get hold of David, you can always reach out to me, and I'll gladly. But yeah, it's not hard to get hold of him now. He's in the public eye now. David, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Who's the next question?
So earlier, Jeff Tolva, you had your hand up. Did you still have a question or no?
Not.
Hi, Jeff. I think your mic's not working.
Yeah, you're muted right now, Jeff. You need to unmute yourself. No, we can't hear you.
I saw Jeff's. Jeff is the statistician who does all the numbers and knows everybody's figures. And when I said, I don't know how many times I've played Cars, he flashed up on the chat thing at the bottom 488 times. So that's 488 gigs. and I wonder how many rehearsals. So easily 500 times, I would say.
So then we'll move on to Dave then for the next question.
Your question, Dave?
As in me?
Yes.
Kim, hi. Hi, Dave.
Hi, Dave. How you doing?
I'm not so bad, thanks. Yourself?
Yeah, good, thanks.
So sort of similar question to what was asked a couple of, a couple of questions ago were not quite exactly the same. So in the situation where when Gary brings out a new album, what's sorry, I don't know not sure what's happening there.
Larson, we're gonna have to.
Right.
That sounds cool.
Right. So in the situation where Gary brings out a new album,
I think he's playing it with boxing gloves on.
Sorry, it's a bit difficult to speak over this.
I know, yeah, I can imagine.
Oh, so we're just trying to find who it is so we can mute them.
It's Bigsby Larson. I keep muting him, but he keeps coming back. So I don't know.
Yeah. So in the situation where Gary brings out a new album, what tends to be the usual situation? Do you tend to get sent a copy of this new album pretty early on for you to sort of listen to and consider to learn to play it? Or is it a situation where you just asked to look at that album when a tour is announced, for example? And when you do start looking at an album, listening to an album, what sort of what's your procedure? How do you sort of go about sort of learning your parts?
He sends the tracks, essentially the album, and you kind of live with it. It's funnily enough, in the old days, probably the first 10, 15 years, you literally would turn up at rehearsal, having not heard anything. And it was always a bit of a bone of contention because, you know, it's not the most conducive atmosphere to working out a part in a room full of people that are trying to work out their parts. So that was always a bit of a roast. But now, the last few years, he'll send the tracks and then I'll decide what to play. With Gary, there are things that you can play and the things that you can't play. And I try to play everything that I can that is playable, you know, like, which is a keyboard part as opposed to sort of an atmospheric noise or a sample. There's lots of samples being triggered, lots of rhythmic things being triggered. So I try to find the keyboard part. And if it's not, it won't be like a piano part, a two-handed thing, because that isn't Gary. So you'll find a few parts, and then I'll either talk to him or Aid Fenton and say, can you send me those parts soloed? I've got that luxury of rather than trying to pick them out on the album, which everybody else would have to do. I can just get them to send me the solo parts so I can learn them that way. So that makes life a lot easier. And then you turn up at rehearsal and you're fully armed with all the bits and you know what you're doing. So that's how it works.
Yeah. Do you tend to sort of before a tour is announced, get yourself familiar with these tracks, or is it only if a tour is announced and then you find out what tracks you need to be playing that you take that on board?
We hear about the tour, you know, quite a long way in advance, so that people can make sure they're available. So you've always got it in your diary, knowing that it's going to be announced whenever, and then it won't be actually happening for another probably 6 months after that anyway. So you've got plenty of time. The secret is to start learning, you know, plenty of time in advance, so that you're not sitting there surrounded by gear the night before rehearsals, desperately trying to, you know, do your homework. So I'm old enough and had enough bad experiences now to start early enough before rehearsals.
Thanks, Dave.
Nice one. You're welcome.
Right, Rob, who's the next question?
So Jeff Tolba thinks he's fixed his microphone issue. Let's go ahead and try him again.
I hope so. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Hi,
Is this
Jeff.
good? Hi. Good to see you, mate, and greetings from Chicago.
Yeah, how are you?
Doing well, thank you. Appreciate it. Really loved the first song I heard there. That was really fantastic. I'm really excited about your new album, Dave, and can't wait to hear the whole thing. My question is pretty straightforward and simple. I'm just curious on the new album, what instruments you play on it.
Well, I haven't played on mine or Gary's. Sorry.
No, on yours.
On
your
mine.
album.
Well, I have played a bit of guitar, although I have used Steve a lot, and I've got another mate that I work with quite a lot called Lee, that has done quite a bit. And then there's another mate who's here in this country. There's a band called Holy Holy, which is Tony Visconti, who was Bowie's producer. And a couple of the Spiders from Mars, you know, the band, the Spiders from Mars. That they've gone on tour, and they've had guest singers. They've had like Mark. Oh, there we go, Mark Armand, and Glenn Gregory from Heaven 17. Anyway, this guy Paul, who plays guitar in that band, he's done a couple of bits and bobs on it. So I've done a little bit of guitar, a little bit of singing, lots of programming, lots of all the keyboards, lots of programming. I don't think I've done anything else.
Does Angela sing on many
oh yeah,
tracks?
Angela's sung maybe 3 or 4 songs, and I've got this guy mixing it. So I've recorded everything and then I send it to him. It's a bit of a weird story actually. We were pulling into New York on the last tour with Gary, and I got a text from a mate in England saying, "Are you in New York tonight?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Can you get a mate in to the show?" So so some guy that I'd never met before wanted to come to the show. His wife was a fan, so I got them in. Anyway, we got chatting, and he turns out he's an engineer. He's an English engineer living in New York, and his stuff is amazing. His name's Lee Groves, and he's amazing. So he's mixing the album. So I send it all off to him. He sends it back, and it all sounds amazing.
Fantastic.
So that's how it's coming together.
Very good. Oh, great to see you again. I'll go back in the shadows now while others ask questions. Great seeing you, David.
Nice to see you, Jeff. Hopefully see you soon.
Hopefully too.
Thank you, Jeff. Who's the next question, Rob?
Paul Wilkins.
Paul, your question. Go for it, sir.
Yeah, everybody hear me okay? David, nice to see you again. I've caught up with you a couple of times at rehearsals, which have been absolutely fantastic. Can I just forget this guy, Gary Numan, for a minute and ask you, who else have you worked with in your long career? And who's been the best people? Because I think it's really interesting to find out from second musicians who else they've worked with.
No. Well, lots of people. I went away, I think it was about 2013, to do a load of gigs with Banana Armour, which was so bizarre, one sort of extreme to the other. And there was quite a lot of crossover for a while, where literally you'd be doing one festival one weekend with Gary and one festival the next weekend with Banana Armour, which was always amusing to me. And then there was a big diary clash, which is why I went away for a couple of years with them. And I did, Nicole Schertzinger had a couple of singles out in the UK, and I put the band together that did that. I did Enrique Iglesias for about 5 years alongside Gary. That never clashed because it was just bits and bobs. God, who else? Done bizarre, strange things. Ellie Goulding, Smokey Robinson, I did a gig with once.
Well, keep name dropping, go on.
Yeah, I know, yeah. But funnily enough, that question about who was the best to work with, I was doing doing gigs with Nicole Schertzinger, which obviously always used to raise an eyebrow because she's beautiful, and people say, "Oh, I bet that's amazing." But around that time, I got asked to do Catherine Tate, who is an English comedian. She's got her own TV show, and she does her own characters, and she was going on tour doing her own show which had music in it. So I was doing in the rehearsals with a load of people whose names escape me, but you would know them. The English people here would know these people because they were all her lot. And it was just the most ridiculous experience because we wrote some stuff together for her. We did a charity single together and wrote some stuff, and then we had to play. I think it was "You're Wondering Now What to Do Now You Know This Is the End." You know, the old sort of ska tune. I think it was that one, and she'd rewritten the lyrics, and she did it in the style of Gram. You know, the Gram. See all the English people nodding, but everybody else is thinking what the hell is he talking about. It was so funny. I thought I was going to die. It was the most hilarious experience of my life, and I'd love to do that again. She was amazing.
Excellent. Well, I hope to see you again as soon as those rehearsals start. So fingers crossed.
Yeah.
And see you hopefully soon in the future.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Look forward to it.
Yeah. Cheers, David. Thank you.
Nice for me.
Thank you, Paul, for the question. I think the next one is it Mike in Seattle? Is that right, Rob?
That's correct.
Mike, your question, sir.
Okay. Hey, David.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
Good. So I have kind of a geek talk question for Vaughn's channel. You and I look roughly the same age. Do you prefer like knobs and buttons or software when you're programming?
I would have to say software. I am Gary Numan's keyboard player, and I always feel embarrassed to say, because people that are into Gary Numan often tend to be knobs and buttons, and I often get cornered, in queues, and by these people with incredible knowledge of synthesis, and I've picked up a bit along the way, but I got the gig not on my knobs and buttons merit, and it's developed over the years. And when I first started doing the gig, where we used to rehearse at Gary's house, there was a barn with flight cases, 50 flight cases of gear, knobs and buttons. And now, over the years, it's progressed through this, that, and the other, through the quadrasynth days to now the laptop. And I use MainStage with some nice plugins and the Access and a couple of other bits and bobs. But I'm almost embarrassed to say that software. It's just
no, don't be embarrassed. I love both, and I think I prefer Reason,
right,
because of that, because it looks like knobs and buttons, and you can flip it around and pull chords and do all that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah.
But you've got the power of the software behind it. So
yeah.
Anyway, cool. Thanks.
No, I think, and to elaborate on that, Mike, Dave and I were talking about this in the last chat. I'm a member of Gary Numan's Patreon page, Patreon group or channel, and he put a video up there a couple of months back where he's in his studio and he's working on music, and the camera, I think Gemma was filming him, and the camera panned around and there's no gear. And Gemma's asking him questions about the gear and stuff. And, he's really just got this one computer screen. And something I've spoken to with our last interview, David, was Gary is not a purist. He's not into all the bullshittery, because I know in my group as well, there's a lot of geeks, and please, I'm a geek myself, and we're all different levels of geekery, but I can imagine you being the keyboard player for Gary Numan. There are people who are going to be really looking at you and go, "Oh, why don't you use this? Why don't you use this?" And I think, I can't speak for you and I can't speak for Gary, but I think it's really just, if it works, we'll use it. There is no reason to, go on a charade of knobs and, authenticity. And I think that is why I think a lot of people, and this is what I've always loved about Gary Numan, he's very honest. He's like, and I think, David, we spoke on the previous interview, we're not going to mention the band, but I know you were talking about a band you guys supported, and they had all this gear on the stage, which probably, it was switched on, but they probably weren't using it. Gary, you and Gary and the band are not like that. You're just more about functionality rather than, oh, let's look at all the gear and shiny stuff.
Yeah, yeah, it is very much that. Obviously, he's known for keyboards and synthesis and being involved with lots of people that are experts in such things. But it's always about the songs and the sounds. Songs first. Yeah, I've had got into those conversations with the old school synthesis aficionados, and I'm sort of clinging on to the conversation and keeping up sometimes. But yeah, you can do it all virtually at all with the laptop.
I think we spoke about it last time. It's about the end results. I'm going to get on to a next question here now. But as I said to you, David, now that Gary has sort of like scaled it back to one keyboard player, I said this before, and I'm saying to the group now, I'm always very nervous when I go to your gigs and I look at you. And it's not because I don't have faith in you. It's just that, you know, you are essentially having to jump from one part to another very quickly, doing the parts of two people, really. And as we spoke last time, they're not complicated parts. They're not difficult to play, but it is because they're simplistic and they're iconic. If you get one note wrong, it's wrong.
Yeah, yeah. You're so exposed.
Yeah.
There's nothing that's difficult to play.
Yeah.
But the thing is playing as much of it as you can. You know, we've talked about down in the park. It's not difficult to play, but I've got it now where I'm playing virtually all the parts, and if you go wrong in this bit here with the wrong finger, you've had it, because you can't get to the next bit in time. So it's like a choreographed dance. You have to be on the right foot, otherwise you can't. You know, and it's that once it's learning where all the parts are that you've put them, and the choreography between those parts, rather than learning the parts and being able to play the parts. But I enjoy that. I wouldn't want it any other way.
And of course, being stone cold sober on stage, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, no, I think we talked about it before. You know, I not that I would ever get hammered on stage, but I can't even have a few drinks for a gig now, because you just have to be on it now nowadays.
Right. Any other questions for David?
We had Henry. Did you have another question?
Yes, I do.
Hi, Henry.
So how do you like think of something to write about in your songs?
Wow. Well, I think I just start doodling, really, you know, and then they might suggest that what things come in your head. This sounds a bit like this, or it's suggestion, and it grows like that. With me, I'll sit at the keyboard or a guitar, and I'll be playing with something. It's very rare that I'll have a lyric and come from that side, you know, some words and write from that side. I usually have chords and melody, and then they might suggest something. And then when you're an old git like me, you just go back into your memory banks of stuff, all the awful things that have happened to you, and you write about that. That's about it, really. I've got kids. I've got a 15-year-old daughter who's doing music, and a 12-year-old son. I've got other kids as well, but they're doing music and they write. And I always say you should write about what you know. Don't say anything that you wouldn't say. You know, we're English, so don't write American expressions and whatnot. And just write about what you know, and that's how it'll work. I think so. What do I know?
A lot.
Thank you.
So I have a question, actually. So I caught the gig in Santa Ana, California in 2017, November of 2017.
Okay.
Just curious if you had any interesting stories or memories from visiting this part of the town, Santa Ana, California, near Los Angeles, basically Orange County?
Well, I absolutely love it there. I mean, Gary and Gemma live there, and we go in California. We go and stay at the house, and I usually am stricken with jet lag. When everybody else is asleep, I wake up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and Gemma will lend me her car, and I'll go and drive around LA, Venice Beach, and just think of all the places that you've ever heard of in all the movies, and sat nav and go there. And by 8 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock, when people are starting to surface, I'll go back. So that's my experience of that. I absolutely love it. I think I said before to Vaughn, touring America is what you join a band for. It is everything that you would want it to be. And it is just, it's like getting off the bus or the plane in a different country every day, because every state is so completely different. Right. And it tends to be out of every film you've ever seen. So it's amazing. One of my oldest friends from school lives near that Santa Ana gig, weirdly, which is weird for a Yorkshireman to be living in. Where does he live? He lives. I can't think of the name of the place. But anyway, so we always meet him, which is surreal, as well, to hook up with your old schoolmate from way back. So yeah, love it. Absolutely love it.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks. Next question is from Mark McKellar. Mark, your question.
Your mic's muted.
Your microphone. Unmute your microphone.
Do you still get to see most of Gary's band that are sort of still based in the UK, i.e. Tim and the rest of them? Do you get to see them, meet them?
Well,
what are they up to?
Pre-lockdown, we would see each other and socially.
Yeah. I mean, talking phone, yeah, like on the phone, talking. Do you what they up to?
Oh yeah. I've spoken to them all regularly. Tim's busy, really busy with his artwork. Painting. Yeah. He's obviously got married at the end of the last tour, and has had a kid since. Yeah. So he's to his neck in that. Richie runs a business with his missus, and they're busy with that. Steve's quite busy. We all speak fairly regularly, and I seem to have Zooms with Gary and Gemma about various things that have come up. So yeah, we do speak.
And the tour that's supposed to be coming up, is that going to be like going from 2021 to 2022? I mean,
the tour?
Yeah, the tour that's meant to be happening like for everyone next year.
Well, who knows? To be honest, is the short answer. I think the hope is that there'd be something next summer, and then it would continue, because Savage was like two years of touring.
Yeah.
And Gary was saying that this next one was going to be bigger and better and longer and all the rest of it.
I did read in the book that he was thinking about doing Wembley again.
Well, you heard that, did you?
Yeah.
I've heard that rumor as well.
No, that would be great.
Yeah.
You want to know that? Yeah.
Well, yeah, but nobody knows. Right? Yeah. Nobody knows is the honest answer. We're hoping that next summer it's going to kick off.
See local festivals, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, he announced one, didn't he?
Yeah.
Saw one.
Blancmange.
Maybe could well be. Yeah. I write them all down, but as with all music, this wall planner thing here is this year. You can't see next year's, and you can see everything crossed off it. And things are on.
Loads of gigs crossed off as well. I was going to see loads of concerts this year, and it's all gone pear-shaped.
Yeah, nobody knows. I mean, let's just hope. Let's just hope that it'll.
Let's just hope and pray. Yeah, hope and pray. That's all we can do. Hope and pray. Anyway, nice talking to you again.
And you, Mark.
Look forward to seeing you. Maybe do a. I'm hoping to do a backstage thing with Gary next year when he tours. So I'm hoping I'll get to talk to you and get something signed. Lovely.
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
Cheers, then.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark. And as I said to David, as I said to you in the beginning of this call, it was this time around about 2 years ago that we were all in the Royal Albert Hall. And I really think that was a special moment and very hard to trump, really, because I remember seeing that. And then a year later, we had the Revolution Evolution, the 40-year anniversary. And it was, as I say, and the 40-year Evolution tour was great, really enjoyed it. But obviously, it was not on the scale of the Royal Albert Hall. That was just something else, something special.
Yeah, it really was. It was like a dream, you know, and yeah, it would be hard to top.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Right. On to the next question. We have a question. Lloyd wants to ask another question. Lloyd, your question for David, please.
Hi, Dave. Hi, Dave again. Yeah. So I've noticed when you play Down the Park on your set list, your guitar player does this dance in the intro.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Was that spontaneous or was that discussed during rehearsals?
It was spontaneous the first time. You know, he doesn't play in Down in the Park for quite some time. There's a load of song before he starts playing. So you know, I guess he would have not had his guitar on. He might have had a drink or whatever, and then he just sort of was taken by the spirit, I suppose. And then it became a thing. I've never heard it discussed. I've never heard anybody mention it officially or in any way to him or about him. I do notice that Gary usually gets out of the way. So I'm usually busy, but I can look up and just notice Gary sort of goes out of the way because he knows it's coming. It's kind of part of the arrangement, I think, now.
Brilliant. Obviously, you're all session musos for Gary, but it's almost like, obviously, Steve Harris disappeared for a while, and then, but it was when he came back, it was kind of like, okay, as I spoke about the chemistry between Numan and Steve Harris it's a little bit like Richie Sambora and Bon Jovi or Keith and Mick, you know, the Stones. There really is. So I think you guys are really at a point that you're not session musicians because you are actually, I think if one of you are not in the band, it's really, you know, I think people really notice it and feel it.
Yeah. We've all done lots of other things. I don't think anybody is actively seeking other work now. I mean, we're doing things, and if something comes along, I'll do it, and I'm sure everybody else would. But I consider Gary's gig to be my gig, and you know, if somebody says, "What do you do?" I'll say, "I do Gary Numan." That's kind of defining thing. So, and yes, the band is a band. I've been in lots of things where there are groups of musicians, but it's not a band in the sense that you know, somebody might turn up and just play the part or read the part. It's very definitely a band. We've spent so much time together. You know, I could go into pretty much any gig with that band and do a gig. It's a really good collection of personalities and skills. So yeah, it's good.
Okay, I'm going to take some more questions, but I just want to ask you something, and I think this is an important question, David. Obviously, Gary's always had, if we look in the 80s, he had several keyboard players, and we discussed that obviously due to technology now, you don't need that many hands on stage. But obviously for years, he always had typically 2 keyboard players. And the question I've got is, at what point, it obviously got to a point where, you know, other members left for whatever reasons, that Gary said, okay, David, you're it. How was that put to you? Was it kind of like, David, do you know of another keyboard player? Or did Gary say to you, David, can you handle it all yourself? You know, how did that come about?
not been around because of the Bananarama thing, and also he moved to America, and he had new management that had their own ideas about how things should be done. So you know, things kind of changed. Who knows, if I hadn't have gone off to do Bananarama, maybe I would have ended up not doing it anyway because of personnel change. I think there was a point at which none of us were doing it at one point. When he first got to America, there was an American band. I think I wasn't around, so I don't know. But he had 2 keyboard players, and so actually there was one keyboard player before me. I've forgotten his name. So in America, they'd got this. There'd been 2, and then one of them had, for whatever reason, stopped doing it, and it was down to 1. And then he wasn't going to do it, and they were on tour in the UK, and I think they were playing at the Hammersmith Apollo. And Gemma, because we'd always kept in touch, Gemma had got in touch and said, "Do you want to have lunch?" So I came up to London for lunch with Gary and Gemma, and it just conversation. And it wasn't put to me, "Do you want to do it on your own?" kind of thing. It was more. I can't even remember. It wasn't like, "Do you want your gig back?" kind of thing. It just happened in conversation. The issue of there only being 1 was never really discussed, I think, because I think it had been established before me with this other guy.
Okay.
I think my first gig back was in America, and the rehearsals were in America, and there were fans there. I remember it because I hadn't seen everybody for a few years, and there was a whole new crew, all the American people. And we were in Los Angeles in this rehearsal studio with these fans, and I'm there, and I might not have learnt it. I might not have, that nobody knew whether I'd cracked it or not. It was a funny moment when they turned the gear on, we started playing, and it all came together. It could have been a complete disaster, but luckily it came good. So yeah, it was strange times.
Interesting. Okay. Thanks for that. Next question is from Nigel. Nigel Drum, your question to David.
Hi, Dave again. Yeah, just talking about venues a bit earlier. Obviously, you played the Albert Hall, which is huge and massive. But I remember going to Moogfest in 2016, and Gary did a 3-night residency there. And the first night that was played was a place called Motorco, which is probably not much bigger than the room that you're in now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember it was absolutely rammed. There were people queuing up outside, and obviously you must have played good places. You must have played toilets, So, do you have a worse place of you've ever sort of played?
God, there have been some strange places like that one. I remember that. I remember having to get to the stage. There was no stage access. You had to go through the crowd, which was all right for me. But it was quite rough for Gary through, and then we had to get the gear, carrying all the gear.
I remember it was all down the side of the hole.
Yeah,
it was all just barried up. I thought that looks familiar, and then it was all just down the side of the hole.
Yeah. There's been not so much with Gary, because obviously he's got such a following that you tend to play decent places. But I've played some toilets with other bands. I've some horror stories. I've played in prisons, you name it. I've probably played in some terrible places, punch ups and one where the sprinklers went off. That was quite exciting. Just terrible things. There was one, the band, I work in a band, and we tend to travel quite a lot, and we've got this thing where it rains wherever we go, and we often turn up at places where it doesn't rain. I don't want to use this as an excuse to just name drop, but nice places where it just doesn't rain in the world. And on this occasion, we were in Egypt, in a weird place on the edge of the Sinai Desert. And when we arrived, there was all the trussing on the beach, looking out at the whatever sea that is. And we said, what if it rains? Because there was no cover. And they said, it doesn't rain here. It hasn't rained for over 20 years. There are people in the crew that have never seen rain. It won't rain. And it pissed it down. It absolutely rained. It was flooding that night, and it hadn't rained for over 20 years. So yeah, that's, I think it's me. I think it's me that does all this.
What was that? Why does it always rain on me?
Yeah.
Right. Thanks for the question, Nigel. Next question, John B. Sir, you have another question for David.
I do. Hi, David. You all right?
Hi, mate.
So what is life on the tour bus generally like? Is it a bit claustrophobic or is it pretty cool?
You can't complain because Gary likes a nice tour bus. One area he doesn't scrimp is tour buses. He always has, the best ones. And it's always the same. You get to the end of the rehearsal and this sort of tension starts to mount, unspoken tension where people are thinking, I just want to get on the bus. I just want to get my bunk and put my stuff out. And, so there's that kind of thing about getting a good seat, so you get on the bus and then you look around and it's amazing. They're always really lovely experience. But the weird thing is after about 5 days, less than a week, that novelty goes and it suddenly becomes very functional and not quite so exciting. Sometimes it can just get rammed. You'll make it out of the venue or whatever, and you'll come and you're just tired, you just want to go to bed, and it's just rammed with people. You can't move. That can be quite challenging. You have to learn. It's like one of these reality shows like Big Brother, where you have to learn how to be a contestant to not get voted off, because you just have to learn how to not upset everybody, because there's nowhere to go to escape.
Yeah.
And by the end of the Savage 2 years, there was a lot of hotels, but there was a lot of bus as well. It's you all know each other pretty well, shall we say?
Yeah. Thank you. That was brilliant. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Cheers, John B. Any other questions for David?
I have 2 questions.
Go ahead, Larry.
Okay, so were there any artists that inspire you to get into music? And also, what are your favorite synthesizers growing up, from your youth?
Well, my taste in music is quite eclectic and corny, really cheesy, I suppose. All sorts of stuff. I mean, I got into old soul and Motowny stuff and a lot of UK ska when I was younger. So I missed, I've got to be honest, when I was younger, a lot of my mates were into Gary and Susie and Blondie and all that sort of thing, but I missed a lot of that. And my tastes kind of went elsewhere. Keyboards, I was much more a kind of piano person than a synthesis person. On this album that I've been doing now, I've kind of discovered Moog the wrong way. I've been trying to find certain sounds, and the more research I've done to find the sound, it's taken me to, I haven't got a Moog. I use a plugin called the Oddity, I think it is. And it's a sort of fake Moog. And so I've got into that, and it is absolutely amazing. But I think I'm the last person to get to the party. Everybody else has been there and done it. So yeah, it's not a very exciting answer, I'm afraid.
Okay, because there it is. So what a lot of like the artists like that got me into music. I have a lot of favorites. I'm into a lot of 70s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s alternative rock. And I just want to like admit this, but like for the future, I'm actually starting my own alternative rock band called the Red Sharks.
Right.
And I actually have a song here that's written. It's called America's Sweetheart.
Right. Right. Sounds good.
Do any of you want to hear it?
Well, why didn't you? You should record it. You should record it and put it up on a platform.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I want to go to like a college for like audio engineering and stuff, because you know that way I can like learn about these different platforms and equipment, and I want to start the band sort of like around like when this whole situation's done. And this song that I wrote was actually it was actually inspired by this person.
Okay, right.
Her name's Chanel, and I don't know if you're familiar with this show, Ridiculousness. I don't know if they play it in your area.
No.
But she's from that show. She released a few albums, and one of them being this year, and it was called America's Sweetheart. And I decided, what if I wrote a song called America's Sweetheart? And that's what I did. Like I tried to like come up with different ideas, and I threw in like a few references to some of her songs.
Right. And how old are you, Larry?
16.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, in the UK, they have a really good. When I was younger, the options for studying and learning were awful, and I went to a couple of colleges. One in particular that said it was what you're looking for, but it absolutely wasn't. But now here, there are lots of places that are doing really good courses, and they're so equipped with all the right gear. It's a diploma course that you want, which is it's like a straight out of high school thing, and you might do a 2-year course. But I'm sure it must be at least as good in the States. I'm sure it would be. And you can get a qualification that can take you into areas of the music industry, or to degree level education, university. But you should look out for a diploma course.
That's great advice, David. You're a good mentor there. Right. Any other questions for David there? There must be lots of questions. Someone who hasn't had a question yet. The lady with the blue hair, Atusa, go on, ask a question. You're a Gary Numan fan. Go on.
I am. I was looking inside chat. Somebody named Ceci or Cece had asked a question that I was interested in. Is how do we get more information on the lessons or the mentoring?
Yes.
Well, if you write to that numankeys@gmail.com, it's just the email address, Numan Keys, Numan Keys, Numan Keys at gmail.com. I can talk you through it. But basically, I was teaching guitar or piano mainly to kids here where I live. I've done that a lot, and then I got this student that wanted to learn about Logic, which is the music software thing, and I've produced and engineered a few things for people. So I basically put all that together, and I'm offering that as a service. It was Gemma, Gary's wife, that said, let's get Gary to put it up on his website and advertise it, and it kind of went mad from there. So as of last week, I'm mixing a few tracks for a few people. I'm setting a few things to music. Some people have sent me sort of poetry, and I'm setting it to music, producing a track. I did a keyboard lesson yesterday. I've got a Logic lesson tomorrow, all on Zoom. So that's what I'm offering. But if you write to that email address, and I'll come back to you.
I will definitely. I have one more question. So I actually inherited a little finger from my mum. We both have little fingers. So where can I buy a T-shirt for each of us?
If you go to there's the Townsend website. Townsend is the basically sort of online shop. Or if you go if you go to the Littlefinger website, which is Littlefinger all one word, Littlefinger .club, CLUB, littlefinger.club. That's the website, and you can click on and go to the Townsend shop there and get the T-shirt, free buy the album, get a ticket for a show. I think they're still up there, even though there's no show yet. But yeah, and there is a Facebook if you go Littlefinger Music, and an Instagram Littlefinger Music as well, so you can get in touch any of those.
Awesome. Thank you. Really enjoyed your track as well. Very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Cool.
Thanks, Atusa. Any more questions for David, guys?
How's Lily? You very quiet?
Hi, David. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
Good. This has been so interesting. Thank you so much for doing it. And as you know, I'm probably the only person here who didn't start out as a Numan fan, but have come to love it over the last couple of years. So thank you. And I'm loving what's on your album so far. I do have one question. The little video that you made where you're actually butt naked.
Yeah.
Was there anybody around when you actually made that video?
Yeah. It was quite early in the morning, so I had hoped that there wouldn't be, but there were dog walkers and joggers, and I've got this mate to film it, a guy, and when I met him, he turned up with a young girl. I mean, it was weird. She was the camera woman, and I was naked, and I'm an old man. And it was just, this is wrong. So yeah, it seemed like a great idea when I was talking to my mate about it, but when I got there, it was weird, just weird.
Well, I can't wait for the album, and I've loved everything that the little clips that you've put out so far, and really hope you guys get back to the US.
We will.
This craziness is over.
Yeah,
have
I
a good
hope so
holiday.
too.
Thank you again for doing this.
Nice to see you, Lily.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.
John B, you have another question, sir? No, sorry, not John B, John. So your hand just went up, am I right?
Yeah. Hi, David.
Hi, John.
Sorry, I meant to say to you before about the new single. I love it, by the way, and good work, brilliant stuff.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
I wasn't being rude or anything.
If I just really hope people buy the album. It's nearly finished. It's supposed to be finished next month. I'm slowly coming to the realization that it's not going to happen because I've got it all done except for one vocal on one track, and I didn't have a singer. Rusty Egan from Visage has found me a singer. She hasn't actually said she's going to do it yet, but she's got the track, and I'm hoping she's going to do it, and then we'll get it mixed, and then we'll get it out. So please buy it. Please buy the album.
Well, you got guaranteed sales with the Numan fan base anyway, so we're there for you.
Oh, bless you. I hope so. Thank you.
Can I ask you about some of your previous groups you played with, and particularly Daryl Hall and John Oates?
Yeah.
And what you done with those? A tour, one off, or?
No. It was so I used to work for a guy who puts together. He was like a fixer basically, and he would fix. So if an artist was coming over, he'd fix loads of things. All the big events. I don't know if you remember the Queen's Jubilee a few years ago when they had that massive gig outside the front, and he fixed that.
Yeah.
Put all the musicians together for that. My missus, my wife, was one of the singers in that. He put the new lineup of ELO together. You know, ELO's on tour, and it's like a new lineup. So he does all of that. I used to work for him.
Yeah.
And so when artists like Enrique would come over, they'd ring up and say, he's got a single out, here's the single. There's 30 TVs and a couple of radio things, you know. So that it was brilliant. When that call came in, it was always brilliant. And I got one for Daryl Hall and John Oates, and they had a single. It must have been about. It was Des and Mel, I don't know if you remember that TV
Right.
show.
Yeah.
And it was a live thing, and I sang BVs, which was bizarre. And I remember them saying, "What is this show? What is it?" They didn't know what they were on. And I don't know if you remember it, but it's daytime TV with a live audience.
Lunchtime thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the live
thing,
audience are all old ladies that have come to see Des O'Connor. And I remember Daryl Hall saying, what are we doing? And I said, it's a daytime TV to old ladies. And as we walked out to do it, I heard him go, "Oh, good God." As he saw the audience, he just saw, "Oh, good God." It was a good, interesting experience.
The reason why I asked that question was because it's strange how what goes around comes around. I'm the English of 5 people, my family, and I had a lot of musical influences in my house I was brought up in. And my second older sister was seriously into Hall & Oates back in the early to middle 80s.
Right.
So it's strange how these things how these things connect up in the end. Like Hall & Oates, wow, that's unusual, because obviously I'm a massive Numan fan now, yourself and the stuff you do with Gary, and then of course it's strange how they say what goes around comes around.
Yeah.
Again, can I ask another question about all these other people you played with?
Yep.
Like the likes of Hall & Oates and Julio Iglesias, his son rather. Are Numan fans the most crazy you've seen, or is there a group of fans that exceed us?
I have done played with Gary for so long that I know them so well. I know some of them personally so well, and know the vibe. I'm aware that other acts have fan base like that I haven't had any contact with, but I'm also aware that Gary, in the media, you often hear people mention the Numanoids and how sort of fanatical they are. It is a phenomenon. I've done things where there's been a bit of sort of Beatlemania around Enrique Iglesias. That was always mental to see women of all ages, old ladies, young girls, just wither and become sweating, quivering wrecks at his presence. Hardened TV clipboardy people, the producers, when he walks in, just completely rendered speechless.
Right, gotcha.
But that's a different, that's a different phenomena, I suppose.
Could you go back to what I was saying before? Can you ask Gary to play Dark on the next year's gigs if they happen? Because it's my favourite. Well, my favourite
Dark
track. Yeah.
I often try and slip that one in. It's one of mine as well.
It's awesome.
I think it is amazing. Yeah.
It's awesome track. It really is.
Yeah.
Especially extended version, just magical. It really is.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
I'll do my best.
Cheers. Nice one.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Right. Any more questions for David? Anyone got a question for David?
Well, can I share my song? Because I specifically wrote this song and I wanted to share it out.
Well, Larry, I don't, by all means, send it to me and to David. It's just I want to keep this focused on David's music and him as a session player, if you can appreciate that, obviously. So, but yeah, you've got my. I'll you know me. I'll gladly listen to it. So, any questions for David? Go on, Rob. I know you. We had a long chat yesterday, and you had a lot of questions. So.
Well, actually, it looked like Matt had his hand up. That's what I was going to say.
Oh, Matt. I apologize, Matt. Matt, go ahead, sir.
I was waiting, but it's fine. Couple of questions. One is, where did you grow up in Yorkshire, Dave? And when did you know that music was your future and not a dream?
I was born in Doncaster, and we moved around a lot with my dad's work, but we ended up back in Wakefield. So I always say I'm from Wakefield because I did all my teens, school and whatnot.
Yeah.
Wakefield. Where are you?
Originally Warwickshire.
Right.
So around sort of Nuneaton way. And then now I'm in Surrey. So
oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
Been down
yeah. So Wakefield, and I moved to London to do music. I was going. My mother was a music teacher, as I said earlier, and she discouraged me from music. Not in a sort of hardline way, but she just didn't really encourage it as a career path. She was trying to get me to do more academic things, and I was doing my A levels, you know, so 17 or whatever. But I'd started playing in bands and had got into music and was making a hash of my A levels. It was never going to happen. And I found the prospectus of a performing arts college. And I think I went home that night and said to my parents that I'd been thinking about this for some time. I actually found it that day, but I did such a good presentation that they totally went for it. And I think they probably had worked out that I was going to make a mess of my A levels anyway, because they went along with it, and I went to this college. So that was about 17 or whatever. And then I went to Leeds College of Music, which was the one I mentioned earlier to Henry, saying it was a disaster because it wasn't what it said it was, but it is now. It's an amazing place now. So I did a year there, and then I just started joining bands. So by the time I was 19, I was touring in bands. So it's been a long time.
Amazing. And finally, last thing, sorry. I've been using Reason for quite a while, you know, the propeller head software.
Yeah.
How do you rate it?
I don't know it very well. I have played about with it, and I think it's really good. If you're in, if you're doing that kind of music, and I do use it for things, you can always go to it for things that I wouldn't normally be able to think of, I suppose, or come up with. So yeah, I think it's great.
Thanks. Thank you.
I think with that, Matt, as I've said on my channel as well, is a lot of these days, because the market is so competitive these days, you're not really going to find anything that's crap, because the standards are so high. It's really just what you like. And I think being a producer, it's not like it when it was, when we were younger. What you've got these days is an abundance of information, an abundance of tools, and it really is limiting yourself rather than, it's quite interesting. David, you can probably relate to this. When we were younger, we would look up to people we looked up to, and they had all this gear. Well, fast forward to the current time now, the bedroom musician has access to the same tools that the person he's watching on stage. For instance, if we go and watch Gary Numan on stage and you're playing those keyboards, most people have access to main stage, which is a 25-pound piece of software. So now more than ever, it is the ideas that are actually more valuable than the gear and how you use them.
Definitely. Thanks.
Yeah. Anyway, that's my input. Seeing that there's no questions, guys, David, we are coming up to 2 hours now. So this, this is meant to be pleasurable for you. I don't want to make you feel pressured. I'm going to ask you one more question. And then while we're talking, anyone else wants to ask a question, then I think we'll probably look at capping it. David, you're the guest, so I don't want to keep you all night.
I'm fine, but yeah.
And once again, really appreciate you doing this. I want to come on to this. We spoke about this in the interview I did with you last time. The acoustic set you were doing with the lockdown stuff. I think, as Gary said, he didn't want to release that because I think someone got excited and shared a couple of tracks and thereby rendered it a little bit of a non-go-ahead. Is that something you think may go ahead in future, not necessarily as a live performance thing? But I think, hearing Numan's songs, which are fundamentally very electronic, hear them stripped back like that. Do you think that we'll hear something like that?
Yeah, I spoke to him actually since we spoke, and he is going to do something with those recordings. I can't actually remember what it was. I think what he said was when the promo starts for whatever happens next, album, tour, da-di-da-di-da, he's going to do something with them so people can hear them and see the videos. And I think the whole experience was so positive, and went so well that I think that there was talk of doing, I don't know, I don't suppose we'll do a tour or anything of acoustic, but there'll be more. It certainly will happen again, either in that way. I think it'll certainly happen again that way. I think the idea of renting a big house in the country and going and staying there for a few days and you know, playing was so amazing. And the songs lent themselves so well to it. Nothing did, is that a right expression? Nothing didn't work. You know, he had that list, and everything worked, which was a surprise. So it'll happen again. It might happen live. I'd love that. That'd be amazing. And I think he's going to do something with those recordings. I can't remember what it was though.
I think also, David, when you're doing that, when you're doing songs like that acoustically, it brings a new dynamic to it. But also, when you guys are performing in your usual way, there's a lot of, I don't want to say smoke and mirrors in a bad way, but, you know, you've got lights and you've got a backing track that is kind of, you're playing over and along to. So, you know, you've got this wall of sound, but when you strip it back to acoustically, you're naked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It is very open and revealing.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you know, we were saying I'm kind of used to that, the being exposed, because there are times when it, probably for everybody actually, when it drops down to just you, and you just got to not think about the fact that all of those people are listening to just you. So when we're doing the acoustic thing, the fantastic thing is though that sometimes I'll end up playing a guitar thing and Steve will do some keyboardy thing because it sounds really lovely on the guitar. And there was a lot of that. For all these years, we've literally not done that. We've played the part or found a way to interpret the part. This was very much different pockets of people sitting and saying, well, if you do that, I'll do this. And I don't have to do that because this is happening. And the songs worked really well because they're good songs. You know, it's not a case that it's smoke and mirrors and bells and whistles that are making the show. There's always a good song.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to do a video soon, which I'm calling Gary Numan Song Analysis, where I'm, in my way, going to explain why a Numan melody sounds the way it does. And something that we spoke about, and I don't know, by a show of hands here, how many of you are producers or musicians? Put your hand up. So quite a few. Okay, that's great. So something David spoke about in that interview, and if you haven't seen it, go and watch it, is this fascinating idea with Numan's music, where there are no chords in the music. So you as a keyboard player, you'll never really play a third. You'll only play typically a melody in the right hand, and in the left you'll probably just play the bass notes. And so there's never a chord, so to speak. And that's that was quite mind-blowing to me, just to go, oh, I think, you know, I know most of Numan's melodies off the back of my hand, like most geeks. But to be actually told that you know that there are no actual chords, and that was one of the. Am I right, David? You don't ever play chords. It's always a melody and a bass root note.
Yeah. He doesn't write with chords. It's quite a classical thing. If you think about, you know, a classical composer writing for an orchestra, they probably don't really think in chords. They think melody and parts, harmony, as in maybe a bass line.
Yes.
Straight away, the melody can stray from different parts of the chord.
Yes.
And maybe a keyboard line, so that the harmony is suggested by the parts.
Correct.
Rather than chords supporting everything else that's going on. So in all these years, and Ada Orange before me and Chris Payne before that, never played a chord. Never used all the fingers on one keyboard at once. Never played a chord. Every other gig I've ever done has been like that, but harmony is something that happens accidentally.
Yes, and it gives it that sound. Because I was looking at when I put up that replicas promo video for this, I realized that is like you don't actually play the A major. It's just you're just playing the melody and the bass notes. Anyway, I don't want to get too geeky. But another fascinating thing was the no-nos by Numan. No wah-wah pedals, no right cymbals, no Rhodes pianos, and no Hammond organs. Is that right?
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. There we go. If anyone's looking for to audition for the next Gary Numan keyboard part, there you have it.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's his taste.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard him really get into things that artists that have got that in them, but he wouldn't have it on his own stuff.
Sure.
And it's that really interesting thing that you talked about with Depeche Mode, where when you're trying to create your sound, you either consciously or subconsciously create a palette.
Yes.
So you say, well, I'm not going to use snare. Oh, no, it wasn't snare. It was hi-hat, wasn't it? Or
I think it was Depeche Mode didn't use hi-hats at one point. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, so if you were going to do I don't know, a rock album, you wouldn't be doing sort of reggae things. You wouldn't have timbales and whatnot. But you create your sound by limiting the palette of sounds and instruments.
That's right. Yeah.
And whatnot. And he's got some definite ideas about. And he writes in melody, not in harmony. Melody and rhythm is that's it. And then sounds.
Great. Okay, guys, any more questions for David before we let him go and enjoy his night, because he's a busy man?
Yeah.
What's your favorite Gary Numan song?
Cool, that's the one. Well, Dark. I really like Dark. I don't, you know, it's just a really clever song. If you take it apart, it's a perfect example of what we were just talking about. It doesn't make any musical sense. The verse and the chorus are in unconnected keys, and then it goes back, which is the weird thing, because so often you can go to a different key for the chorus, but getting back to the verse again. And obviously, I love. I think Our Friends Electric is a genius song. It's
the one they did with Tubaway Army, right? That was the name of the band.
Tubaway Army. Yeah.
My favorite is Cars. I think I've heard it on the radio a few times.
Right.
And I've listened. I listened to it a few times. And there are a few songs that get stuck in my head, and some of them I do know. Like right now, there's just one part from a song that's stuck in my head, and it goes like this. Da 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 da. I can't figure out the name of that song.
That sounds
but it's in there.
Kiss from a Rose by Seal.
You've just shown what great mentoring skills you have there, David. So I might book you in for a session myself just to brush up on my skills. But listen, guys, I want to thank everyone that's joined in tonight, David, and I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart on behalf of myself and everyone here that's joined in. Hopefully we can do this again sometime. As I say, this was just really a thing to test the water. I think honestly, I was expecting maybe a few more people would join. But I know with these Zoom calls, some people are quite shy because they don't want to sort of be on display kind of thing. But I think Zoom is quite a new thing. And as my wingman, Rom there, who's kind of like a guru on it, will tell you that I think in the next year, it's going to become like the real sort of common way to do things. And I think with this lockdown, a positive thing is that we've had to really look at ways of conversing. And I think Zoom has been a very good thing. So I want to really thank everyone for being on here tonight. And as I say, David, you've definitely not seen the last of me. You know, when I interview people on my channel, I get them back and back again, not to annoy them. But guys, something that I've spoken to David about and we're hoping to do is I want to meet up with David somehow. I'm hoping to interview Gary Numan myself, you know, the man himself, next year, hopefully when he comes here. But we are discussing some kind of way where David and I can set the gear up and we can actually do like a rundown of David's actual Gary Numan setup, where he can set up the keyboards and say, okay, well, this is, you know, just to put a bit of and we talked about this before, there are unfortunately a few negative people who go, oh, I don't believe you're playing, David. So we would like to just, you know, debunk that myth and set the keyboards up and have a few beers afterwards. I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, or before.
Or before, yeah, absolutely. So as I say, this broadcast it's being recorded now, and this will be released onto my my YouTube channel next week. I want to make a special shout out to the Numanoids Facebook group, and also to Malcolm, who runs the Gary Numan's fan Facebook group. I think those are the most sort of prominent Facebook groups at the moment. So if you guys haven't joined them, please join them. I'm Vaughn George. I've got my group. And there's Depeche Mode Global there with Rob. If you're a Depeche Mode fan, you probably are if you like Gary Numan. And of course, the man of the moment here to focus on is David Brooks. Littlefinger, his debut single, Beautiful Day, coming out soon. And the album, we're very excited about it. Really pumped for you, David. I'm going to be behind you all the way.
Bless you.
And we'll catch up with you soon.
Thank you for doing this, and thank you for coming. It's been absolutely brilliant. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone. Lots of love to you all, and we'll see you again on the next one.
Yeah.
Be safe.
Nice to see
you.
Bye,
guys.
Thanks, guys.
But I'm told it's a beautiful day. We're lost in a storm.